Welcome, and welcome to Newtown's World. Welcome and welcome to Newtown's World. We haven't been doing this for a while, so we're back again. This is Gary Davis, your host. We have a great show today. We're talking about watersheds, some of the most important environmental aspects that we have to deal with in our town. And with me today are James Belden, the Executive Director of the Pootatuck Watershed Association, and a member of the board of the Pootatuck Watershed Association, Dan Holmes, who is also a member of the Sustainable Energy Commission. So guys, glad to have you both here. It's been very interesting for me as we're working here at Charter. I would run into Dan frequently in the editing room and say, Dan, what are you working on? He says, "Oh, a special project." Well, that special project has now come to fruition. It's a great video about the Pootatuck Watershed and the other watersheds that supply water to Newtown. It's called Our Sole Source. It had a test screening recently, and James and Dan are here to talk about why they made this film and why we as residents of Newtown should care about what it says.
Great.
So guys, how did this come about? I think, Dan, you were the guy who kind of devised this plan to create a video.
That's correct. That's correct. I was definitely inspired after walking the streams with an intern for the Pootatuck Watershed Association, and I was struck by how beautiful some of these areas were, some of the streams and local water courses. And then I was also struck by how on top of the watershed we have constructed our lives, and it really struck me, and I thought it wanted to paint a picture about that story, and that was just an initial idea, and brought it to the board, and the board liked the idea. Having never done this before, I wasn't sure how we were going to do it, but it was certainly an initial labor of love, and 3+ years into it, we were able to turn it around and have something to show. So that's how we started.
And 3+ years, in some respects, sounds like a short period of time, but it can be forever when you're producing a video. And this had to be a labor of love to be doing it over 3 years. A lot of the people who worked on it part-time and doing it as they could put it together. But you guys really know the watershed in Newtown well, and yet I think you learned some things in the course of doing this video.
Well, I think everybody has something to learn when it comes to watersheds. Although the basic logic of how watersheds work is pretty easy to understand if you think about it in the right concepts, but the average person has no idea really what goes on underneath their feet, what they drive by every day. We have a core group of dedicated people that have been working since 2005 and the inception of the Pootatuck Watershed Association. But the average person doesn't get to hear the story. And so the movie idea was really an excellent way for us to communicate to people not only what a watershed is, but what it looks like, where it is, how they impact it every single day. And this is a story about every watershed. But it uses the example of this watershed, the Pootatuck, which is a rare and special watershed, being a sole source aquifer, supplies majority of our drinking water needs, as well as some of the very high quality waters of the Pootatuck River and Deep Brook and other streams in town. This was a way for us to get in and explain this to people and use this example of what can happen in any community, not just ours, but any community, because we all live in watersheds. Or a watershed.
Now, when you say a sole source watershed, what does that mean?
That's an U.S. EPA designation. It's a drinking water standard designation. A sole source aquifer is one which provides the majority of the drinking water needs for the people who live in the community above it, and that there is no other viable source of drinking water. So if it were to be contaminated, there'd be no other source of drinking water. That is the definition of a sole source aquifer. This is the only aquifer in the state that has that designation that's entirely in the state. There's one more in eastern Connecticut and Rhode Island, but this is the only one that's entirely in the state. And what's even more important for Newtowners to understand is that this watershed lies entirely within our own borders. So we have complete control over what happens to it and to protect it for our own sakes.
So now we say that we have complete control, which means we have complete responsibility to protect it or to screw it up. And I think you were very surprised in the course of the filming to find what actually flows into the watershed on a daily basis.
Absolutely. I certainly was, and it's not my background by any stretch, water, and I was struck the more I learned and the more I realized clearly how vital this resource is. Clearly the plants and the birds and the animals, but the water is certainly, without that, there's not much that we can do. So
one of the main points here, and we cover a lot about land use and protecting open spaces, and the fact is that watersheds really aren't water.
Right.
They're lands. The water is the product of that land. Like a sponge, the aquifer soaks up water and releases into the streams, or it goes into a well pump and we drink it. Either way, it's like this sponge that processes the water, reserves it for our use, or goes into the streams. So if that sponge is dirty, you have dirty water. That sponge is taken care of and cleaned and constantly recharged with new water falling from the sky. Then it remains wet and clean, and we have clean water.
But we also have flows of water that's not necessarily as pristine as it could be that flow into the watershed. And let's talk a little bit about what you learned and how you address that in the film.
That's, I think, the impetus to show the dichotomy between some of these beautiful, beautiful stretches of water and then some of these areas that we have culverts and pipes and drainage and asphalt directly flowing and sheet flowing directly into our streams and our watersheds. So that aspect to me was shocking. That what are we doing differently? Shouldn't we be doing something differently to stem that flow, to hold it back, to think about new ways of construction? And clearly we are, but a little more has to be done more quickly, certainly, I think.
Well, the issue too is that when you have a construction or other types of impacts to the watershed, and you have water that's not clean flowing into it, there's a certain part of the natural process that will cleanse that water. Right. But when you get to the point where nature's natural ability to purify water on its own is stressed, and are we to that point right now to worry about that with our watershed?
Well, since the Clean Water Act of the early 70s and then Clean Water Act 2 of the early 90s, we addressed most of those big end-of-pipe, ugly, nasty, green stuff coming out of the pipe type of disasters. But we have this constant assault on our water resources of non-point source pollution coming off of people's yards, off of parking lots. There's, of course, the wastewater discharges where we're cleaning most of the stuff out of the water, but there are still micropollutants like the chemicals from our household cleaners and pharmaceuticals going into our waterways. So, yes, we have a long way to go. And when we say clean, that's always relative. And in any given spot in the watershed, it can be a little bit less clean depending upon the activity going on at that time, new construction, an oil spill at a town facility like we've seen here. A truck accident that turns over in diesel fuel spills, all these threats that are a constant threat. We have a couple of cleanups going on in town currently. The Noranda site just off of Route 25, which was chlorinated solvents in the ground, and it's a 10-year remediation, and that's still going on. So there are things that certainly the watershed is not perfect, and it has had its impacts. But we need to address those old things while we continue to ensure our protections for the future.
So, and I think you raise a good point that once you have a problem, it's not a problem that can be cleaned up in a short period of time. You're talking about years to right the imbalance with the natural processes.
Often, yeah.
But I think there are potentially, but I do think there are immediate things we can do when it comes to stemming the flow of sheet flow.
Well, so once you have a problem, it takes a long time to fix it. So
not necessarily.
Oh, no, okay, great. So give me.
Yeah, there's some immediate fixes for some things. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm not a hydro engineer, but certainly our public works department all day long, and our town workers all day long are fixing things that have the ability to fix it in this manner or in another manner. And I think there's newer technologies and different pipes, ways to hold the water back from the stream prior to it
Right. One of the
translocating down to the ground.
one of the ways that we
that cleans it.
one of the ways that we've always tried to have a major impact, and certainly before I was on the council, I was on planning and zoning. You try to implement the best state-of-the-art management practices for any new development. So better stormwater technologies. Mm-hmm. So you're holding back the dirty water. You're allowing it to recharge into the ground rather than run off into the stream. And pervious pavers, so you're not creating more impervious surfaces than you need to. Those kinds of things. But one of the important things, to Dan's point with what the Public Works Department does every day, let's say, if they're going in and fixing a road drainage, they need to do it better this time than it was last time. The engineering of 1980 is not sufficient for what we know now and can do now. So we need to constantly reinvest in fixing the things when we get the chance to fix them, as well as implementing better practices on the new things we're doing.
So in the research and putting together this video, Our Sole Source, what are some of the things that you saw that we're doing right, and what are some things you saw that we could improve upon?
What do you think?
Wow.
Come on, guys, lay it out.
To me, what struck me, the other interesting part about the group of people involved in protecting the water is that's a very active group and very dedicated group of people, and I think that part of the movie is what came forward. So what we're doing right is we have some good people that are doing wonderful things, and we have good organizations.
And there's some real concrete things as well. Well, first of all, the water quality sampling activities that we've been doing, our various groups, the Pootatuck Watershed Association, Kenwood Valley Trout Unlimited, as well as Town Land Use Department staff working all together to do microinvertebrate sampling, thermal monitoring, water chemistry sampling twice a year. We've been doing that now since 2006. So there's a lot of that going on. And then there's some real tangible things like funding the stream gauges, which the town does, which was part of the aquifer study that we helped negotiate with the town several years back, and it's now done, but we continue to fund the stream gauges. There's the $10 million bonding and open space acquisition since 2004 or so. So all those things are real concrete things that we're doing right, that we really are doing right.
So what are the things that we need to address going forward? Doing things right now, but what are some things that we could improve upon that would even make the protection of the watershed stronger?
I think certainly the educational piece, the average homeowner, the average business owner, certainly any people who work for the town who are engaged in activities in our town, in every town clearly, a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of how to do something a different way, whether it's pesticides and fertilizers and how we treat our storm waters and effluent, pipes, and I think as much as possible, keeping in mind whenever we put a shovel in the ground, whether it's that's my background, plants, and so I came at it from that direction, and certainly fostering the native habitat once again with open space protection. We all need to look at our own properties, not in little parcels that are separated, but really looking at it with the idea that whether it's a whole street, a whole cul-de-sac, or a section of town, these need to be thought of as corridors. And if we think in those terms, then I think our mindset is certainly more sustainable.
Well, you raise a good point. Yeah. Well, go ahead, James.
Yeah. Each parcel of property is part of a larger habitat, so it's not just based upon where your fence line is, and you should manage it. Bare earth up to that point. Those land management practices on your own property are critical. The septic tank maintenance, that's critical because all that is leaching into this very same material that's cleaning our water, which we then drink. It's all tied together. Limiting the amount of chemicals and pharmaceuticals in your home that go into whether if you're on your own septic, because that's again leaching into the same system, or on the town water waste sewer system, because that eventually is going into the river directly. So those things are important things that every person can do better. The lawn chemicals, it's a huge factor, and not overusing particularly the fertilizers and the pesticides. All that runs into the road. All those drains run into the woods or into a river directly. And those are things that anybody can help with.
So that's all great information, and you know, the creation of the film, Our Sole Source, is a good start. But now, how do you take this movie, and how do you use it in a way to really take advantage of the time and effort that went into it? And how do we start educating the public more broadly and more quickly? Because a lot of people really aren't thinking in the way you just described, James.
Well, that is certainly the next hurdle, and in thinking about the audience, I think is critical. We want to certainly educate some children, and there were plenty of children for the showing last night, and I think getting their feedback and being able to make it pertinent to their lives and tangible certainly is a good start. So certainly working with the schools, and hope to have some future showings, certainly.
We're going to work this summer on creating a simple curriculum guidance document and work with educators to figure out the pathway to the schools and the appropriate grade levels in a curriculum guidance document that will help teachers use this film in that manner. That's one way. The other way is reaching out through clubs and various organizations and individuals who would like to show the film or have us come present it. Putting it up on the web, of course. It's going to be hopefully on YouTube and on our own website at PootattuckWatershed.org. So we're going to spend the next few months making sure that everybody has no choice but to see it.
That's
well
great.
said.
So now you had your first screening. You know, what was the initial reaction?
It was great. We had around 80 people at the Booth Library last night.
Packed house.
And we had applause, so we were really liking it. And nobody left during the film, and everybody stayed
Not
for the
that I
whole
could see,
thing.
yeah.
Everybody applauded. I think we got a lot of congratulations at the end of the evening, so I think it went well.
And you got some good feedback.
Yeah, yes, we did.
Yeah, continuing to.
And there's probably a couple small things we want to polish up
Yeah.
in the film. So it really was sort of a test screening, but it's 99.9% there. So.
That's great. Well, congratulations. I know it was a labor of love. I know it was a lot of work, and it's gonna. But it sounds like it's going to pay off in a large way.
If I could quickly just mention some of the credits for the film.
Absolutely.
Certainly it was Dan's brainchild. And then after that we banded together and found ways to fund it. So the Pootatuck Trust, which was was our main funder, basically paid for the filming part, but we needed someone to help pay with the editing part. So Iroquois Gas Transmission, through their community grants program, awarded us over $10,000 to do that, and we'd like to thank them very much. And then certainly the organizations that are the 4 permanent board seats on the PWA are the Town of Newtown, Kenwood Valley Trout Unlimited, the Newtown Forest Association, and the Pootatuck Trust, Pootatuck Club. So I'd like to thank everybody.
Yeah.
Along with that, while we're thanking people, because it was not a sole effort by any stretch. We had some wonderful people helping out. Wonderful cameraman who was Dave Curtin was wonderful. Carol Haskins from Pomperog, and another friend of mine who was helping edit, and of course photo and video artworks. Bill Caffarelli and his wife Marlene did a wonderful job right here in Newtown, helping us polish that, because he really took the brunt of it and made something that made it shine. Did a great job.
There were 27 hours of film we started with, and ended up with a 37-minute film.
It was an ambitious project, but you know something? You guys have done it. You've pulled it all together with the help of a lot of great people here in Newtown. So I want to thank you for coming to share that story and help educate us a little bit about the watershed. And I think we'll be doing a follow-up on this to see when the film is completed, and maybe see some further reaction from people as the word gets out about the film. So James and Dan, thank you for coming today. If you want to get involved to help protect the watershed here in our town of Newtown, you can check out the website at PootattuckWatershed.org, and I'm sure you're going to find new things to learn and new ways to help. And with that, concludes this episode of Newtown's World. I want to thank Renee, Josh, and our director Neil for helping out with the show today. And until next time, live life well. That was great, guys.
Great job.
Thanks.
Thank you.